I remember responding to the gospel as a child, no problem. Like it was just reasonable. Like, hey, you were made for God. It was like it was not a big complicated thing. Like how did I pursue Christ personally? Like, and did I know like this is what makes sense of the world that I live in?
Yeah.
It was like I remember having some really challenging times in early high school and thinking things through and living inconsistently with my faith. But then it was like, okay, I've got to make sense of this or I've got to ditch it, And it's like, that's a serious time. So it was like 11th grade where I just kind of put even my education on the side. And I'm like, usually when you're a high schooler, you've got very little to do. You've almost already done all your credits. You can almost go and start college. I had a lot of credits to do in high school because I really took it easy in 11th grade. And I was actually finding God in that year. And then I reordered my life accordingly. I said, okay, God's got to be number one, and I gotta learn who He is and what, and in the process, I'm gonna learn who I am, and that became the core for me.
Okay, that's policy. I love this. It always blesses me to hear the stories.
Yeah.
But also, we have families in Christian churches where they have the same mission your mom and dad had, but halfway something happened. Like Andy Castro, by the grace of God, he went all the way. But we have Johnny, who was going all the way, but something happens.
Yes.
He said, I'm not going all the way.
Derailed.
Yeah.
A faith derailed. A change. Like, it's like this. I tried to fit this into my life, but it's
the parents,
rejected.
they have the amazing core, like they have this anchor in Christ.
Well, they were learning on the way. It was like we were a young family already, and it was just like, we're going to figure this out on the way, but we know what direction we want to head in. And that's like, if I had to sum it up in one thing that I'm thankful for that
right.
they put Christ at the center in their lives to put this, in turn, putting that in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I have a similar story, even though it's, miles and miles away.
In Africa.
Yeah. I was 6 years old.
We
moved to Africa. And, I grew up in the middle of missions. I grew up in the middle of ministry.
Yeah.
I was in it. I was part of it. Everywhere I went was just, where my mom and dad went. And I went to Bible college when I was like 12 years old. I was going to Bible college.
Your dad's church planting right
now. My
now.
dad is in southern France now, church planting. So, but it was the same story. There had to be a point where I had to say, all right,
mine.
What's real? What do I believe? What's going to be the worldview that I'm going to be living in? What's going to be at the core of my life?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was kind of a gradual learning that happened. I think I learned I grew up being so exposed to the truth all the time. Like I said, I went to Bible college when I was 12, and I went for years, and I kept going, and I was part of worship since very young, played music for the band. I was just part of the church. Like I was kind of like one of the pillars that's always at church, but ultimately it came down to, all right, it's just me and God. Yeah. And, who is God going to be to me personally?
Yeah.
How is the Bible, where am I going to put the Bible in my life?
Yeah.
Is it going to be something that was good memories and is full of, great truth but I'm not going to live by it. I'm going to kind of refer to it, and I'm still learning,
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever going to come to a place where we're going to say, I've built my core, I'm set to go. Now it's like cruise control, smooth sailing all the way.
Yeah.
I think we're going to keep battling. We're going to keep having battles with God. We're going to keep having struggles. We're going to keep learning that, what I believed for 20 years was actually not exactly it. And God is going to reshape that core. God is going to keep cultivating it. And ultimately that's the goal. That's what you see in the scriptures, that we would become like Christ, that He would make us into the image of Christ.
Yeah. So it's very fair to say, in the search of finding the core for our lives, we go through a process.
Correct.
Like there is people who the disciples were afraid to ask, but you also have the young rich ruler. It's fascinating, the story in Mark chapter 10. I just said the reference. The guy is rich, he's young, he wants God, but he has his concept, but kind of God shook his concept. He said, go sell everything to follow me. Like I wrestle with that verse because you look at it like, man, I don't even have anything to sell. But also the possibility of maybe having a great possession at some point in our lives.
Isn't it in a sense saying, give me your heart?
Yeah.
It is.
Because it's almost like Jesus could see through him and see, I see what's in your heart, and that's not what and that's got to go. You're gonna have to vacate that to make room for me. To make right.
But we also, when I tell the story, I tell myself I really need to be careful, because we don't want to portray Christianity as this something hard to follow,
borderline homeless. You got to be borderline homeless.
Yeah,
I know people that they've sold their early on in their Christianity. They thought they had to sell their possessions and everything of value because that's what it meant to follow Christ. Right.
And Franciscan, that's some kind of trade. We just
Martin Luther, that he was on that path.
Really? Okay.
Just crucifixion, unnecessary.
Because what I see in the story, I like what you said. Give me your heart. It's not about what he had, and obviously God is not against money and against rich people and all that, but just what's.
But God knows what our identity is. God knows where we place our confidence in, and you cannot serve God and mammon.
Yeah.
At the same time, so there has to be, even though God is not saying everyone needs to become poor, everyone needs to have no job, everyone needs to just be homeless. God is not saying that, obviously, but he's saying whatever is in your life that is taking my place, that needs to go.
Yeah, we would argue the opposite. I would, that if you get the core figured out, if Christ becomes the core, his message, his life, then you actually become quite industrious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like you get to work. You think because you've discovered your purpose, and it's quite motivating, and it's almost like fresh blood running through the veins, loaded with everything you need to really, you're supercharged. Almost like there's an adrenaline rush that comes with it. This is where I'm at. There's harmony, there's humming, there's there's a buzz.
Yeah, and how much of life is motivation, right?
Yeah.
And to have the right motivation to do something is amazing.
I've sensed it. I mean, and I know it's coming from my faith. I mean, it's that's to go back to our testimonies. I saw you when 9 years ago?
Yeah, around 9 years ago.
I remember I remember when we picked you up for church.
Yeah.
We were in the neighborhood not far from here. And was it Jerry? Was Jerry Rivera?
Pastor Jerry Rivera.
Chris Moore?
Yeah.
Pastor Chris. I remember. I think I was with him because I used to hang out with him. You found God, and then you said, "This is my place, our church," and it really worked for you.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, that really was a pivotal moment in your life, and finding Christ to be the core for me was a pivotal moment in my life. And it's all of a sudden, it's let's get to work. You start to figure out this is what you start to discover the meaning and purpose of life, and then it's give me a tool, whatever I'm gifted to do, I'm ready to put it in God's service.
Right.
Yeah, and we love the thoughts of being consistent. But I was talking to you before recording today, but we are the rich young rulers,
Yeah.
in the church. What is the remedy? Because we want to also be encouraging. There are people
So
in the
we're
church.
there, we're in the crowd, Jesus is speaking kind of thing, right?
But we walk away sad because he said something offending.
It's not working.
It's not working for us.
Yeah, and there might be people like that in the church, right?
We actually have them. I mean,
yeah.
Just
right.
I know we cannot cover all aspect of the subject, but
this is important.
A thought about how we. But there's some people they're really genuine about being in that position. Like you said earlier, we want to give them the solution. What is?
Well, Jacob in the Bible is a great example of this. Jacob there was a deep-rooted selfishness.
Okay.
Trickster, deceiver type of type of character.
My ends are met.
I've got to meet my ends, right?
Yeah.
And the story of Jacob and Esau, how like his mother helped him figure out how to steal the birthright.
Yeah.
Right. And all that, and he was like running from God. He didn't know God, and then it was like, it's an amazing story to follow. Like, wow, God was here, and I didn't know it, and like there's a realization that happens in Jacob, and he becomes awake to God, and he starts to set his relationships right with his brother. He sets his relationship right with his brother, and he becomes. He gets a name change, right? Israel.
Yeah.
And becomes the father of the 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 12 sons. So, we think of Jacob as, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, one of the patriarchs. But there was very deep sort of work that had to happen in his life, and God damaged him.
Yeah.
Right? He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Like he battled with God, he wrestled with God.
That's a good point. I think there's winning and there's losing sometimes. The sense of loss.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking with a limp.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's something that stays with him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to encourage you. Like I want to.
But he gained something.
Yes, he gained
He
something.
lost something, but he gained.
Yeah, how many
something.
people have gone through something really terrible that we would say it's terrible, a tragedy of some kind, or a physical illness of some kind, or losing a family member, and maybe it's not right away, but some years down the road they turn around and say, I would not trade that. I would not trade what happened to me.
All things work for the good.
Right.
That verse.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I wrote a couple of points down. Maybe that could answer the question you were asking, Muhib, about what's the solution. And I think number one is, like you were saying, it's we have to be honest with God. I think we don't get anywhere by just playing a pretend game with God. If you're going to play a pretend game, you're going to be like wandering in the wilderness for a long time. And God is, he's not in a hurry. He has plenty of time. So
it's almost like take off the mask, right?
Take off the mask.
I think, young people need to hear this. Like,
take off the mask. Just be real. Ask the hard questions.
It's gonna be a humbling process. You're not gonna like it.
If you have to go through a hard time, you might as well make it worth it. Don't make it go longer than it needs to, and be real with God.
A lot of people find God by this very short prayer. If you're real, reveal yourself to me. Like, and there's people that are in the church that are like, I don't know if I even sense God in my life.
Right.
And they've got to take that time, either voluntarily or involuntarily.
Right.
Like the circumstances of life come crushing upon them, like you were saying.
Yeah, sometimes
and it's like,
that happens.
okay, actually, I really do need God.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you needed God all along, but the circumstances just finally got you
and I think
on your knees.
We're all super different. I think, some people, all you need to do is spell it out, and they believe. It's like, God, just say a word and my servant will be healed. That kind of faith, that simple faith. Some people have it. Other people need to be like a Jacob. They need to fight with God all night. And when they fight, at the end, they'll get it. Other people are like prodigal sons, and they need to go away for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think all of that is part of the process of getting real with God and having a walk with God that's real. And but for those that those of us that maybe are just want a couple examples of what can be at the core, I wrote a couple of things down.
Okay.
Is number one was having a sense of true acceptance from God. That should be at the core. Number two, never forget to set our eyes on eternity. I think that makes a huge difference in life.
Yeah.
When you go through stuff, when people leave you, whatever it is, to know that this life is not the bottom line. The life we live right now is not the end of things. There's eternity. Understanding our depravity, to me, is a huge one.
Yeah.
At the core.
Yeah, live in light of eternity.
Yes.
Right? Like there's a greater thing happening.
There's a bigger picture, and I'm not in the center of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first one was again?
First one was understanding our true acceptance, having that inner sense.
Yeah, there's a
of true
misconception of
acceptance.
God that's just really out there, unfortunately.
Like God is
right.
not trying to sell concepts. He's personal.
He's trying to be
He is.
real,
You know, he's real, he's personal.
reveal
Yeah.
himself and his love for...
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in religions, there's this idea of selling a concept about God. But
Right.
in Christianity, it's like, God, I'm real, I'm with you. You could be the rich young ruler and ask me, and I can challenge you. We can go back and forth. I love that about God, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
I think when we see God, we love him incredibly, you know, and it's like there's
Right.
something incredible to him that just creates in us a sense of worship. What was that third one?
The third one is understanding depravity and yet our perfection in God.
Yeah,
like the seemingly contradictive part of our lives that God made us perfect and yet we're sinful.
yeah.
you know.
Okay.
And we think like we really have to impress God or the people around
Right.
us in order for it to be accepted.
And we don't.
And it's better to understand that we're gonna disappoint ourselves and
Yes.
those around us. It's
Yes.
almost better to like let's just put it on the table for what it is.
Right.
Like we're not.
So that when it happens, we're not surprised by it, you know. And that's another thing that could take us out. Is
Failure.
Is failure.
Yeah.
It's a big one, and we, you know, we have this image of ourselves that I'm all this, and then all of a sudden I fail, and I realize I'm not even close to what I thought I was, you know.
Yeah,
but-
it'll be revealed if like if there's a misconception, it's gonna lead to a crash.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like you might not come out of it. You know, it might.
Right, you might not.
Your faith might get derailed, and
Yeah.
and hopefully it's a prodigal son story where there's a coming
Hopefully
back.
there's a coming back.
And
Yeah.
and the first thing you realize is, wow, God is like so much greater and so much more
Yeah.
personal and real than I ever realized.
That's awesome. And the last one that I just wanted to share quickly before we close pretty soon is that life is not a result, it's a process.
I love that. That's deep.
It's not, we don't live for now, we don't live for becoming something that we set ourselves to be. We are in a marathon, and we just run this race one day at a time. We fellowship with God. We have times where we feel like we're on the mountain, times we feel like we're in the valley, times we feel like we're underwater, drowning.
Yeah.
But it's all part of life, and if we have our core set by God, if we have these great, awesome truth filling us, like wherever we are in that process, on the top of the mountain, deep like Jonah in the belly of a whale, we'll
Yeah.
be okay. We'll be rightly related.
That's amazing.
Great. Well, with that, I hope this discussion was edifying to you as it did for us on the spot. It really
Show us.
gave us something to think about,
Provoking.
and hopefully the same for you. So until next time.
Thank you. My throat might be bothering me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My voice is not the same.
You did it. 9:23.
Great.
But that-
15 minutes.
Hey, that was great.
On the money.
We kind of hit the points, but
We
not in the order, right?
We kind of hit everything. That was good. It's better that way. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's a little too.